What if the worst day of your life turned out to be the beginning of your greatest story? That's exactly what happened to Tom Smith, the larger-than-life mechanic who went from being fired on national television to creating one of the most talked-about rivalries in automotive history. His journey is filled with chaos, comedy, and betrayals that fans never saw coming. From childhood recklessness to garage wars with Richard Rawlings, Tom's path was anything but ordinary. But behind the laughs and the roaring engines lies a story far more complicated, one that asks whether freedom ever really existed. Tom Smith was never the type to blend into the background. Even as a kid in Ohio, he had energy that couldn't be contained. His curiosity drove him to dismantle anything with moving parts, from radios to lawnmowers, just to see how they worked. Most of the time, he couldn't put them back together. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the discovery. By the age of 10, that reckless streak led to his most infamous childhood story, sneaking his uncle's 1974 Pontiac Granville out for a joyride. The adventure ended in disaster when young Tom lost control and slammed straight into a police car. No one was seriously hurt, but the moment captured his entire spirit, wild, curious, and unwilling to sit still. Later, when he moved in with his grandmother, Tom didn't calm down. If anything, his independence grew sharper. This restless energy would follow him everywhere, from the classroom to the garage, shaping the man he would become. He wasn't just a boy who loved cars, he was a boy who lived for the thrill of pushing limits, and that thrill would carry him straight into the world of professional mechanics. Transition. But talent and curiosity alone weren't enough. Tom needed a mentor. Working in his uncle's garage was Tom's first taste of automotive life, but his true education came under the guidance of Carl Parsons. Parsons was a racing legend in Ohio, known for his deep knowledge of performance tuning. He spotted something unusual in Tom, not just enthusiasm, but instinct. Tom could hear a car run and almost immediately pinpoint what was wrong. He didn't rely on complex diagnostic tools. His gift was intuition, sharpened by years of trial and error. Under Parsons' mentorship, Tom's skills evolved from raw energy into real craftsmanship. He started to see cars not just as machines but as personalities, each one with quirks that demanded respect. At the same time, Tom's rebellious streak never faded. He made bold choices that sometimes left others shaking their heads, like buying a Ford Galaxy convertible in a neighborhood full of Chevy diehards. "I'm not going over a cliff with you in a Chevy," he famously quipped. That defiance, equal parts humor and stubbornness, became a defining trait. By the time Tom headed to Texas, he had the experience of a seasoned mechanic, but the spark of someone who still refused to follow rules. Transition. That spark was about to collide with television fame. When Tom landed in Texas, his reputation quickly grew. At Driver's Edge, he built a loyal following of customers who swore their cars ran better than ever after his touch. Word spread, and before long, opportunity came knocking in the form of Gas Monkey Garage. With the Discovery Channel's Fast and Loud already pulling in millions of viewers, Tom's larger-than-life humor and quick wit made him an instant favorite. Fans connected with his no-nonsense honesty and comedic timing, which often cut through the tension of the garage. To many, he wasn't just another mechanic on the show, he was the heart of it. Behind the scenes, however, things were less smooth. Gas Monkey was a pressure cooker, and Tom's natural tendency to resist authority made clashes inevitable. While cameras captured builds and laughs, a storm was brewing. Tom didn't know it yet, but a single decision involving a Rolls-Royce would unravel everything. What started as a harmless gesture would turn into the breaking point of his career at Gas Monkey. Transition. And it all began with nothing more than a photo. In 2014, trouble arrived in the form of Richard Rawlings' prized Rolls-Royce. Tom and fellow mechanic Jordan Butler allowed a fan to pose for a photo near the car, thinking nothing of it. But when the shop manager discovered it, his reaction was explosive. Harsh words were exchanged, tempers flared, and Tom, never one to bite his tongue, fired back with an insult. That was enough. Within days, both Tom and Jordan were out. Publicly, Rawlings labeled them troublemakers, framing the firing as a necessary purge. But Tom didn't see it that way. Instead of shame, he embraced it as liberation. Comparing himself to visionaries like Bill Gates, who had once been fired, he boldly declared that this was the best thing that had ever happened to him. For many, it would have been a career-ending moment. For Tom, it became a rallying cry. He wasn't going to let Gas Monkey define his legacy. Instead, he saw an opportunity to strike back, to turn dismissal into defiance. Transition. That defiance took shape in the form of a brand new garage. Fueled by anger, ambition, and a dash of revenge, Tom and Jordan joined forces with Scott McMillan and Thomas Weeks. Together, they launched Fired Up Garage, a name chosen as a not-so-subtle jab, its initials spelled FU. The spin-off show Misfit Garage premiered in 2014, built on the concept of outcasts rising against the machine. Fans loved the rivalry between Gas Monkey and the Misfits. The drama played perfectly on screen. Fiery exchanges, insults traded back and forth, and a sense of rebellion that drew in viewers. But behind the curtain, things weren't what they seemed. Few fans realized that Richard Rawlings himself was an executive producer of Misfit Garage. He owned the building the Misfits rented, meaning every month, they paid rent to the man they were supposedly battling. It was a rivalry crafted for ratings, not reality. Still, Tom leaned into the role, bringing humor and grit that kept audiences watching. Transition. But while cameras showed rebellion, Tom's real passions revealed a much deeper side. Tom wasn't just a mechanic. He was a performer, an artist, and a storyteller. Long before TV fame, he worked as a professional stand-up comedian, gracing stages like the Dallas Improv and Manhattan's Christie Comedy Club. His quick one-liners and sharp humor weren't scripted for television. They were second nature. He also poured his creativity into art, covering entire walls with massive Sharpie murals that left friends stunned. Cars, comedy, and art. These were the true pillars of his world. Even his famous rant about the metric system became a fan-favorite moment, turning frustration into performance. For Tom, an old American motor carrying a metric bolt wasn't just a detail, it was sacrilege. His mother, he joked, always told him the metric system was the devil. These quirks made him more than just a reality star. They made him memorable, relatable, and entirely his own person. But while the cameras captured his jokes and passions, they rarely showed the pressure that was building off-screen. Transition, and soon those pressures would start to break the foundation apart. The dream of Misfit Garage was exciting on screen, but behind the scenes it was fragile. Tom's impulsiveness sometimes created unforgettable moments, like the time he turned an AMC Gremlin into a makeshift boat and drove it straight into a lake. The stunt ended with the car sinking, symbolizing what was happening to the garage itself. The financials were brutal. Custom builds carried high costs and thin profit margins. To generate serious income, they would have needed to finish dozens of cars a month, an impossible target. Instead, the survival of fired-up garage depended almost entirely on TV ratings. The revolving door of cast members only made things worse. Jordan Butler eventually walked away, frustrated with decisions about new partners. Scott McMillan left to run his own business. Kevin Clark, the toy car enthusiast, also stepped away, citing the endless drama. On top of that, the team faced backlash from car purists, especially after chopping up a classic '57 Chevy. The Misfits, who once thrived on rebellion, were now weighed down by infighting and controversy. Transition. By 2018, the cracks had widened into a collapse. After 6 seasons, Misfit Garage aired its last known episodes in 2018. Rumors swirled about a 7th season in 2020, but nothing materialized. Silence replaced the noise, and one by one the cast drifted away. Jordan Butler severed ties completely, even announcing he had no contact with the rest of the team. The brotherhood of misfits that once felt unbreakable had dissolved. Fans speculated about what went wrong. Was it money, egos, or simply the natural end of a TV experiment? For Tom Smith, it was the collapse of a second chance. What had begun as a declaration of independence turned into another story of turmoil and loss. The show that was supposed to free them had been tied to the very man they thought they'd escaped. The Misfits weren't outsiders anymore. They were players in someone else's game. Transition, which brings us to the question fans still argue about today. So how should we remember Tom Smith's journey? Was he the rebellious hero who refused to bow down to authority? Or the tragic figure caught in a system he couldn't escape? On one hand, his firing from Gas Monkey gave birth to an entire franchise built on defiance. On the other, that franchise was never truly free, because Richard Rawlings, the man he was fighting against, was pulling strings behind the scenes. What's undeniable is that Tom Smith left an impression far beyond the cars he built. His humor, his art, and his unpredictable spirit made him unforgettable. In the end, maybe his greatest legacy isn't the rivalry, the builds, or even the TV drama. It's the reminder that sometimes rebellion comes with its own invisible chains. And the real question is this: did Tom Smith beat the system? Or did the system use him for one last great story? If you enjoyed uncovering the untold story behind Tom Smith and the Misfit Garage crew, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got even more shocking rivalries, hidden truths, and stories TV never showed. Don't miss what's coming next. You'll want to be here when the next secret gets revealed.